Oh, can I have some?
Okay.
All right, so now we're going into our Tuta Loca section where we call motherfuckers out for doing the most.
Yes.
And I don't know how to feel about this, but it turns out that Kesha was found guilty for defamation towards Dr. Luke. And they found her guilty of lying about telling Lady Gaga via text that Dr. Luke raped Katy Perry.
Because Katy Perry testified also
And
that
yeah,
it wasn't
and
true.
yeah.
I don't know if she testified, but she came out saying that didn't happen.
No, they had like a transcript.
There's a transcript and it says it's like the question was, so you're saying such and such, da, 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 and she was like, yes, like that's not what happened. So now she owes all this money to Dr. Luke for defamation, including like $1.3 million in royalties plus like $300,000 for the actual like charge. And I think that is such a sticky situation because you have someone who literally was like the pop princess for half of a decade. And
was it that long?
I feel like she had 4 years, so half of a decade. Did she? She was.
I wasn't a big Kesha person.
She
so
was.
That's
all right.
question. That's
Kesha
not shade.
was like.
I'm like
Kesha
really
was all of college for us. She was at the top of the charts from 2009 to 2013.
But what were the songs? Because I remember the one where she was brushing.
We're gonna go through her discography.
No, first of all, whoa.
TikTok.
First of all, slow. No, pause. We're not ramming through this. I am asking to be educated because I genuinely did not follow this bitch for 4 years. So I'm just trying to understand the motherfucking context. I still feel bad for her in the situation. Help me out here. Shit.
So in 2009, she had TikTok. And then she came out with that entire album. Okay. And then she had whatever album came out after that, where she had like Die Young. And then I feel like now I have to think about all her singles. There was TikTok. Then she had
let's tag in Google.
The song with 303. Then she had Take It Off. Then she had oh my God, We Are Who We Are. Die Young.
She had the this place about to
blow.
Blow. That's what it was. I was
blow.
Thinking
Yeah, blow.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but my point in saying that was not to list her songs. It was to say that she had
like she was
a pretty solid career. She
did have a career, and
it literally got axed the minute
chopped,
this happened. You know, and I don't think that somebody gives up their career off of false allegations. You know,
she kept on fighting.
And I think that to take on a name like that is kind of like going against like a Harvey Weinstein of like the music industry.
And then the courts had the fucking audacity to actually claim the opposite, that like because he isn't such a big figure, so essentially in the courts it's easier to prove defamation if the person who you're coming for isn't considered like this a big public figure.
That's the way they phrased it. It's like he's not a public figure,
right? And so
he's big in the music scene, from what I gather,
right?
But he's not physically present. Like you don't see him on gossip columns and shit like that. So like by her accusing him of rape and all that, it brought him out in the forefront, but like that wasn't his life.
Exactly. So which makes it harder for her to win actually the case against him for some reason or another. Now, another thing that, you know, sort of I've been keeping in mind in this process is, but that doesn't mean that they've proven him innocent of rape, right? Because there's still the fact that she claimed that he raped her, right?
I don't know if I read. I feel like that case was dropped, or
did she drop
or
it?
she stopped pursuing it, or something like that. And it was the counter case on his part for defamation that was the one that was still going on.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
because once she got out of his contract or something to that effect, because she was able to release music again, is when she kind of like, well, I'm good now. I don't need to follow this. And that's what I perceive is the situation.
Gotcha. Because then my whole thing is like, all right, they also said that there were that they have some sort of proof that this was all part of a media ploy for or a PR move on her end for her career. But I just like, that's difficult to swallow. Like if that's true,
that's heavy,
right? Like that's really heavy,
and especially in this day and age. Like you kind of have to prove shit.
Yeah, I don't know how true that is, especially like considering, like I feel like if that was the case, then she would have done it a bit smart. Like she wouldn't have lied about something that would have been so easy to prove as a lie. Or plot twist, is it that he's a man who's so protected that even a Katy Perry wouldn't testify? for
that.
herself.
I feel like I would believe that only because I know that his hand is in the pot of like the entire pop industry. Like you're talking about like Dr. Luke and like Max Martin are responsible for some of like the biggest pop stars in the industry. Like from Katy Perry to Britney Spears to Lady Gaga to, you know, Kesha, and like they have their hand in all of these albums, you know?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't put it past him being that powerful to have like protection. But then again, it also brings into question like, okay, well, she said this. And then obviously she's going to have Lady Gaga who is also a survivor and who has also admitted that it's somebody in the industry but is not willing to name who it is because she says that in the industry it's as if everybody has someone against another person. So nobody's willing to support these artists because somebody has something against them, you know?
It's crazy to hear that. Especially
if you watch
what's happening in Hollywood with like Harvey Weinstein,
Yes.
like they just threw him under the bus, and that's. I mean, I'm sure there's other people involved.
Yeah, and like, and I'm like Dr. Luke, Max Martin, like for a hot minute, you're talking about like you wanted a chart-topping single. These were the people that you were going to, you know.
Right.
And it sucks because it's like a lot of women, like You think about I think about like. Obviously, me thinking about like Britney Spears, being a Britney Spears fan, I'm like, yo, this bitch is like going through some psychological shit, and it's obvious.
Right.
What happened in this situation that she's going through this, you know?
Yeah.
And why is it that then also then Lady Gaga, who is one of the biggest pop stars in the world, was raped repeatedly and then shoved into the spotlight and didn't deal with it correctly because she went from having to deal with this thing that happened to her to then like being the biggest pop star in the world.
Yeah.
You know, and now she suffers from fibromyalgia, which is the reaction to the trauma that happened to her with the rapes. You know, then you have Kesha, who is actually being out and vocal about it. It's like something's going on here.
Right.
Conspiracy theory right here.
Yeah, no, and it's just like the one that Britney's career was being hijacked or controlled, or that someone was like speaking on her behalf. What was that?
I think that was heightened by the Black Mirror episode that came out.
Oh, the Ashley O episode.
Right.
Yeah, the Ashley O episode.
Girl, that was real.
Yeah, but shit like I would not be surprised with some shit like that.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the girl has not been working in the industry for a minute now, and somehow is coming out with a new fragrance, and the picture that they're using looks like a CGI version of her.
Is Brittany you talking about?
Yeah.
What's the new fragrance?
Glitter Fantasy.
I have to look this up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think that though there is something to be said, and this is why like even watching news and responding to news, especially around people reporting rape and things like that, it really like gets under my skin because there's always like some deeper story that can't be revealed when it's these big names, and it really pains me for the victims and the survivors who are like in the middle of the situation, who are literally juggling between, okay, like do I let this moment that this person did that completely violated me and traumatized me be the thing that takes away the entire career and like bigger picture thing that I've been working towards, which even in having to say that I'm looking at the rest of my life as bigger picture and having to minimalize my rape for the sake of being like there's just so much psychological bullshit that you have to go through to even allow yourself to say this rape is small enough for me to compartmentalize so that I can get a bigger picture. Like that in itself is something for someone to have to heal from. And so I watched this news, and I'm like clearly not a big Kesha fan or person, nothing against her, but never followed the career. But like watching this as a woman, I'm just sort of like, hey, like, you know, I know what that feels like to try to like call a person out that no one is going to believe you about, and how do we as fans like even, how are we able to support that? Like how can we break that stigma? Because we are, at the end of the day, we're the consumer, and I'm always wondering like how can we take our buying power to actually make changes in this industry? Because you have brave artists and actors, right, in Hollywood, and people who are willing to come forward, but like at the end of the day, people move and make decisions with what's going to pay the money, but we're the ones giving the money, but we don't even know how to like stop, like how do we even dismantle it so that we're like, no, but because we support this this thing more than just the movie and wanting the content, then like you have to change your rules. But I don't know. It's just like I feel like at a loss. And that's why I get so mad at people like NFL fans, because I feel like that's so clear. And it's like, oh, it's clear that if we don't indulge the NFL, and I'm not even talking about the halftime show, because that's one performance, one day of the year out of an entire season where we have a bunch of people that run to bars, buy wings, and are watching Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, Thursday Night Football, faithfully, you know what I mean? And all that buying power. So like, let's not come at J-Lo and a Shakira. Let's come at ourselves. Like, totally. How are we all going to start making decisions as consumers so that people have room? Because like Kesha doesn't have room to breathe here, because we also continue to contribute to some degree to the cycles that these. So I just wonder how we could do something, because I'm sick of having to watch on the news how people are getting fucked and fucked and fucked. And even this week, Harvey Weinstein's lawyer was just like, as a woman, I would never put myself in this situation. So so I don't know why these women didn't know better. Like, because I'm sick of seeing news like that. I'm just like, at this point,
that's victim blaming.
Yeah, it is. It's 100% victim blaming. How the fuck do we get the power back for the causes we believe in, not just for the sake of the celebrities we love, but for what we stand for? I don't know. That's my rant of the day. Boop. There it is.
That's a heavy pour, girl.
That's the one. That's what happens when. Cheers. Right.
Cheers,
right.
bitches.
Shit, because bitch.